Quick, which one's the toy? What's up guys, it's Drac, and I have been doing this for over a decade. I will humbly say that I think that I have some stewardship over the hobby. It's not my hobby, it's not owned or controlled by any singular entity, and that's part of what makes it so beautiful. But when you've had a run as long and as wonderful as I think that mine has been up to this point, and the privilege of getting to exhibit that position of influence in the hobby, well,
with great power comes great responsibility.
Thanks, Ben. So anyway, this is the review of the Milsig. Now, before we get too far into the video, especially for YouTube's sake, I'm gonna go ahead and put this away. But what this is a rifle that I built, lawfully licensed, assembled myself half a decade ago for, a completely separate hobby. And I don't usually talk about that. I don't think that it has an impact on my foam flinging life. And so I don't think that it has a place on this channel. And that kind of leads into the flavor for the first part of this review. But I thought that through sheer irony, it would be a good visual aid to kind of lead into this review. And we will definitely come back to it in a bit. But this is the Milsig M79. It is a Taiwanese, I'm pretty sure it's an airsoft retrofit into a hobby grade Nerf blaster, or as they call it, a foam dart blaster over there. This is a barrel that it actually comes with. Now, there are options that you can change this up with. This is, of course, the pseudo M16-esque stock. If I remove this, you guys can see that it has a small HPA tank in there, complete with a charging hookup, and then this sort of kind of anodized machined part that lets you lock it into the stock of the blaster. So that just gives it more of an M16-esque feel combined with the black barrel. This is clearly designated for closed fields only, for like paintball, airsoft arenas, where everybody is on the same page and you don't run the risk of like, a law enforcement officer having to make the ultimate choice. Like, I think that alone would be controversial enough to merit this level of sincerity for a review. But in addition to looking like an M16, this is also our first ever like commercially available, viable HPA blaster. And it means that we finally have to talk about that as well. So those are two different, very different ethical kind of hiccups that the hobby is going to have to come to terms with, and is going to differ per region of the hobby. It's now a good time to remind my North American audience that while we get a lot of really cool stuff, we are not the only foam flingers out there. There is a vibrant community of foam flingers in virtually every country out there, but in particular, Australia, Singapore, China, the UK in its totality. You've got South America, Mexico, Canada, etc. Like, there are a lot of people flinging foam all over the world. They all do it a little differently. The opinions of this channel come from a North American bias, specifically down here in the Southeast. That's never been a secret. The opinions on this channel also can't be bought, bartered, or sold, and never have been. So I want to point out that while we've taken sponsorships in the past, every opinion you've heard is entirely mine. We don't allow doctoring, correcting, anything like that. And we are completely compliant with, I think it's FCC regulations, where like we would disclose if this were paid in any way, shape, or form, and have always endeavored to do our most earnest in that regard. So that said, this was provided as a review with the condition being that we made a review for it, which we are more than happy to do because I think that it is a serious enough offering in our space that it merits discussion. So this is the Milsig. It is an HPA M16-esque retrofit, specifically designed to take Talon mags and fling foam in the hobby. This is what it can look like, and a big part of the reason that I feel like it's going to appeal to a certain subset of the hobby. However, for the remainder of this video, I'm gonna go ahead and clean it up a little bit. I'm gonna make it look a little more like a paintball marker and a little less like a weapon of warfare. All right, so that's at least a little bit more tenable, eh? This is a Ninja bottle. It's charged up to 3,000 PSI. It goes up to 4,500 PSI. Pretty serious piece of equipment that's going to run you I think a little between $100 and $200 if you pick one up. I actually provided this myself. The tube, the adapter, the SBR barrel, a lot of the extra stuff you see in the video right now came as part of what Milsig is calling their VIP program, which is clearly their version of like Zuru / Dart Zone / Nerf's influencer program, where they're going to send samples out to people. The base blaster itself costs you about 400 United States dollars plus shipping to wherever you may be in the world from over in Taiwan. Blaster itself does have a lot of features, and this is, again, a real review, not just a soapbox, so we are going to evaluate the blaster on its technical merits. That is, after all, something that I like to think we're qualified to do over here. So without the stock on it, it becomes far more like paintball slash HPA inline airsoft equipment. If you've ever played airsoft with an HPA pistol, you're pretty much there, at least as far as the NFA would consider this. If you've ever played paintball with a line into your marker, it's going to feel similar to that. Ideally, you're going to want some sort of backpack to put this in, along with, I guess, your extra mags, your cleaning, your safety equipment. You do need to be careful, as this line, while not, well, shoot, I pulled on, yeah, don't pull that line. So you guys should be able to hear a little bit of a foam flinging ASMR tugging on the line that they send you with the adapter. This is actually a fault in their ecosystem. There's no standard connection here. So this is just a quick, if I pull this, I don't think I should quick disconnect this. Anyway, what I'm getting at here is that while the bottle that comes with the stock has like an on-off in it where it can close its valve, this one is just a line open into the mechanism, into the bolt. It's HPA is... Where do we go with this? All right, so blaster first, then HPA thing second. So the blaster itself has 3 modes. It's very similar to an M16, right? You've got a selector switch. The selector switch is fully ambi, but it is of course larger on the right-handed side than the left-handed side. I'm sure if you're a competent gunsmith, you could switch that over if you were so inclined for left-hand comfort use. That said, for the sake of the camera work, you've got no-go, semi, kind of slow semi. It actually, there's a lag where the bolt resets in between. And then, okay, interesting. A super reliable full auto mechanism. So it seemed like, seems like mine is more like burst fire. I know that other reviewers, and I only know of 2 other reviewers for this product in North America. Other reviewers have had their full auto work, so I'm assuming that, you know, on a clear day with sunny skies, it works just fine. We will take it outside and give it another shot, so to speak, but there are advantages to HPA in the hobby. Advantages include things like not having to charge batteries, having immediate access to your stored energy shots, not having to pump a blaster and prime a spring. Other advantages include that there's a tuning screw back here that I could torque, allowing either more or less air in per burst, which would increase or decrease my FPS. Now, you would have to match your barrel to that, but that's a completely separate kettle of fish. And Milsig, as part of their VIP program, included multiple barrels, so it could be tuned, so to speak, which is something that you can do in a Springer the same way with increasing or decreasing spring power, but those are extra parts. The advantage of HPA is that it can be very variable. Also, as you just saw, when it works, full auto is quite accessible and quite easy. After all you have to do is just reciprocate the bolt, as opposed to full auto being virtually impossible in a traditional pump action Springer, slam fire being about as close as we get, and then full auto in electronic blasters requiring the use of a yoke or something. So there are advantages. I do want to talk briefly, as long as we're talking about HPA, to what I consider to be the terrific disadvantages, especially in North America, to HPA, the nerfing hobby. The first of which, and this is where like people who really believe in HPA are going to call me old school, and duh, I've been nerfing longer than you, duh. So traditionalists would say that HPA should be a pump manual thing, right? It should be a mag strike, it should be a Buzzbee 4B, it should be, you know, something that you do have to put manpower into. There should be a cost. It should be slower to reload or something like that. And that's just good game design. That's good game balance. It used to be the dude with the Buzzbee Ultimate Missile Blast had the highest FPS blaster on the field, but in exchange, the guy with a pump snap had a higher rate of fire. And oh, by the way, the dude using an electronic blaster had quick reloads and ultimate rate of fire over everyone on the field. It made for a balanced sport, so to speak, that was fun for everybody. HPA kind of obliterates all of the glass ceilings that came before it. Springer blasters can't reasonably hit as high as an HPA compressible air burst. Neither can an electronic blaster come close to the rate of fire of a reciprocating bolt. Now, there are ways to get both of those features out of those other platforms, but none as cheaply and accessibly as, say, slapping a paintball marker onto a retrofitted airsoft gun. So, what this would do effectively is a mass adoption of HPA would effectively make it a have versus have not situation. And one of my favorite things about this hobby is not only you can build your own blaster, but also you can play with things off the shelf. You can be competitive or at least have a great time with a $50 Nexus. Or back in the day, a $40 long shot. There were a lot of options is what I'm getting at. You could make your Stampede a competitive blaster for most game types. And that's just me talking about the soul of the hobby and how I don't like the idea of decades of progress, innovation, and fun in game types being leveled by a completely new glass ceiling that effectively becomes pay to win. That's no fun for anybody. That said, that's me being a curmudgeon. So let's talk about the actual real costs that have nothing to do with my feelings or opinions, which are, to run a blaster like this, legally, you have to be in a private field, or at least private property, which is something that your average nerfer does not have access to. Or if they do have access to it, you're gonna have to start playing the same way that airsofters and paintballs do, with field fees and air fees. That means that your day of free fun at your average Nerf war, because the coolest thing about this hobby is that most of the games have always been free. In fact, I would argue that the soul of the hobby sort of revolves around it being easy to access and the fact that the old guard has always been very generous with loaners to the new. And I think that that's really special, but from a purely financial, practical system, you have to spend now a lot of money to get invested or rent. Then you have to pay to fill your air tank. That's driving me nuts. And then you have to pay for the privilege of using the field that you're gonna reside in. And for the guys who just wanna play airsoft but don't, that's fine. And I think that it would be really easy to hop off my soapbox and say, if that's how you need to nerf, then you should just play airsoft. But I understand that there are parts of the world where playing airsoft isn't even an option. Or if it is, it's even more expensive than this new normal threshold, what have you. But the idea of spending $40 to fling foam with my friends just as an entry fee, in addition to the darts I have to buy, the gas I have to burn, and the time spent, it's a lot. It's a lot for somebody who's been nerfing for free for a decade and has come to know and love and invest into that sort of foam flinging. As far as the blaster itself goes, it's an open bolt airsoft gun that uses HPA to reciprocate its bolt and fire a dart. It takes Talon magazines. It's had a retrofitted magwell to do that. The magwell itself is quite good. Hold steady. And it wants to gravity drop. Well, you can yank it. Got a paddle mag release. Other than that, the controls are so familiar to anyone who's ever played airsoft that it's not even funny. It's a standard M16. Selector switch takes you from safe to semi to full. There's not much else to say about it. It's got a full pop rail of Picatinny. They claim that this is for clearing jams, but it effectively does nothing. So this is realistically just for the aesthetic of being able to be like, and be as tactical as you possibly can. Other than that, the aesthetic of the blaster and the build quality is exceptional. It's got a fully anodized, almost SBR upper, so to speak. Grip is good, full Picatinny up top and a little bit down below. The actual finger grooves built into what is effectively the lower are quite comfortable, both with the magazine in and without it. The blaster itself is of an exceptional build quality. Like I said, I mean, it's a full polymer lower. It's got a great grip with finger grooves. It's following all the ergonomics that like militaries have been using for a very long time. This SBR configuration is actually not bad. It would be good for travel if you know you needed to transport it to that private field that you have to have it on. I guess that the last thing to point out before we take it outside is that the variable barrel length uses what to me look very similar to paintball hookups. It's just a threaded barrel. It slides in, it's got an O-ring, dot of oil goes in. You can change it with other barrels that Milsig provides. It's not a bad setup. Like overall, it does everything that you would want an HPA blaster to do. It's simple and easy to use. It has multiple hookup patterns to power it. It has multiple barrel options to tune it. And it takes Talon magazines, which are the most ubiquitous and, necessary ways to fling half-length darts in our hobby. And while $400 doesn't get you everything that you need to play, an additional $150 spent at your local airsoft arena is gonna get you your tank and your tube or whatever you need set up. And you could be rocking and rolling for under $600 if this is an option that your group wants to explore and allow. Let's take it outside. All right, guys, so we're out here with the Milsig. We're gonna get a couple of chronograph shots. This is standard tuning. I haven't opened it up or cut it down a little bit. You can see I've got a very tactical solution to my tank, and I even brought my own pumped up kicks just to be on brand. But let's throw it into semi-auto. Like I said, these are Adventure Force darts in a standard Talon. Put a couple over. 278 is actually somewhat low for an HPA build, but I guess this is the balance they struck. 277. 54, 62, 47. Let's go ahead and throw it. We got 5 darts. Let's see if we can get through 5 darts in full auto. So that was 2, one of which was 202. Man, I finally got it to go in full auto, but it wasn't. Well, we'll see in a second here. So luckily, Bobo, did you bring your pumped up kicks?
No, but I think I better run.
Interesting. Bobo got lucky. So our bolt is currently locked. Can flip it off.
That's what the base was.
There we go. Okay, so this does serve a purpose. We cleared our jam. All right, Bobo, I've got it in semi-auto now. We had a, ooh. We actually can't take it out of, I can't put it in battery. What happened? Huh. How bizarre. All right, guys, so I spent about 10 minutes troubleshooting it inside. I grabbed a couple of hex keys. I cannot get the bolt to disconnect, I guess. So I can't put the blaster into battery, so to speak. The charging port is not gonna allow me to do that. I tried disconnecting the pressure, reconnecting the pressure. I've got nothing. I think that a full disassembly might allow me to reset whatever pin is clearly out of battery so that I could get it into functional condition again. But the purpose of this review is to give you an honest look at the product. And the honest truth is 30 shots in, halfway into a very poorly thought out joke with Bobo, it just decided that it wasn't gonna play anymore. And I cannot even imagine, given how disappointed I am in this product, how disappointed you would be had you paid 400 United States dollars, waited for the shipping from Taiwan, picked one of these up, took it to your local field, rocked it, got 30 shots in, and only to realize that you're gonna be outmatched by Caliburns and Jolts alike because you were gonna be sitting there making pew pew noises. I'm sure they're not all gonna be this bad, but out of a sample size of 4, the 3 that were sent to my buddy Wacom, which can't hit a target accurately to save their life, and the 1 that was sent to my buddy Luke that also doesn't work, I think that it's pretty safe to say that the marketing and hype behind this blaster definitely does not reflect the actual performance of this blaster, and that perhaps even if HPA is something that you want to approach with your community, with your local group, if you're already playing at a private airsoft field and you think that this would be a cool addition to your arsenal and the game organizers are copacetic with that, then I still don't think that this is it. I think that the hobby deserves better, something more bespoke for us than an airsoft gun that's been retrofitted and retubed, that has fittings that provide you with free air conditioning, that has a mag well that was done in a rush to get Talon mags into it so that they could be the first to market with an HPA Nerf gun retrofitted from an airsoft platform. And I think that a lot of the struggles that my friends and I are experiencing with this derive from that motion, is that this wasn't made to do the thing that it's doing, and as such, it's doing a relatively poor job of it. And so I guess I just personally think that the hobby deserves better than that. I don't think that this has a place in any sort of nerfing organization that I've been to recently, just because it would not fit the field. I think that HPA should be used exclusively by responsible builders of it, using parts that have been fully hydrode vetted and work reliably, because the idea, if it'll do this, what else will it do while I'm bunkered down and I lean on it wrong? I don't know. I don't have a ton of faith in it, but I am a man of my word. I think that that's an important thing. After all, if you're a YouTube channel and you don't have your integrity, what do you have? So this is my full, complete, unbiased review of the Milsig. And I'm sure that this video has gone on long enough at this point, so I'm just gonna cliff notes through that if I'm behind a tree and I'm bunkered like this, and some cop happens to waltz up to the field that I'm playing at, and it isn't a private field, and there are no expectations, and they see this sticking out from the tree pointed at usually a child downrange, I don't know what they're supposed to make of that. Hopefully the gut instinct takes over and they make the right call, but like, whew, guys, I don't think that this is it. So that's my review. I will link to Milsig down below if you want to vet them, evaluate them for yourselves. I can tell you that my communication with them has been very choppy, very broken, very, we want this, we don't want this, wait for this, another month, we're fixing this, we can't fix this, et cetera, and so forth. And that for a company that has not but excuses, I think that we could do better. And belaying all of that, at the end of the day, I think that the primary reason that people seek to get into HPA, at least in the North American nerfing scene, is they feel like having something with this threshold of power and variability in it will somehow make them a better competitive player. And frankly, as someone who runs the premier competitive tournament in North America, I can tell you that the best players are the best players virtually regardless of the blaster that they're running. So I would focus on getting more performance out of you and less performance out of your wallet in this case, because there certainly isn't going to be any HPA allowed at the Foam Pro Tour this year, nor anytime soon if this is the best we have to offer. So that is my complete unbiased review of the Milsig M79, and my final caveat is that making videos like this is actually very bad for my channel. People and companies don't want to watch me say bad things about a product, but I think that in this case it has to be worth it because it's good for the hobby. These guys are never going to speak to me again. They're never going to want to work with me again. They're going to be very upset by this content. They're going to ask me to take it down and I'm going to say no, because as I've said 100 times on this channel, my primary loyalty is to you. And that's who I make this content for. That's why I've participated and enjoyed this hobby at the level that I have for so very, very long. I think that you guys deserve that level of integrity. If that integrity is valuable to you and you would like to continue to support my endeavor to provide it, I do now formally have a web store where you can buy my merch or pick up some parts for a blaster that does work. Thank you guys so very much for watching. Appreciate everything you do. A kind comment on this one will go a long, long way. Much love. Blast on. Drac out.